Minho adjusted his formal diplomatic jacket one last time before stepping through the airlock. The Alpha Centauri trade station stretched out before him like a crystal city floating in space. Beings from across the galaxy walked through its massive corridors. Some had 4 arms, others floated in gas bubbles, and a few looked like walking trees made of metal. He had waited 30 years for this moment. Today, humanity would finally ask to join the Galactic Council. After decades of human expansion into space, the 12 ancient species that ruled the galaxy had agreed to listen. It was a big honor, but Minho felt nervous. The main council chamber was huge. 12 towering seats arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different alien species. Holographic displays showed star maps, trade routes, and population data from across the galaxy. The technology was beautiful and far beyond anything humans had built. Elder Vextar of the crystalline hegemony spoke first. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Ambassador Minho of the Terran Federation, you have requested membership in our council. This is unusual. Most species require centuries of careful observation before they are considered ready. Minho bowed respectfully. Honored Elder, humanity has spread to over 200 worlds in just 50 years. We have established peaceful trade with 17 species. We believe we can contribute to galactic civilization. The council members whispered among themselves in languages that sounded like music, static, and grinding stone. Elder Zephyros of the Gas Giant Collective floated forward in his environmental suit, filled with purple gas. Your expansion has been rapid, perhaps too rapid for proper evaluation. We are eager to learn from the wisdom of the Council, Minho replied. We wish to understand our place in the galaxy. Vextar activated a massive holographic display in the center of the chamber. The galaxy appeared before them in all its glory. Spiral arms of stars stretched across the darkness, connected by glowing trade routes. Different colors marked the territories of various species. It was the most beautiful thing Minho had ever seen. This is the complete galactic map, Vextar announced. Every explored system, every trade route, every inhabited world, the product of 10,000 years of exploration by the Council species. Minho studied the map carefully. Human space was marked in blue along one edge. Earth sat at the center of human territory, with colony worlds spreading outward in all directions. But something looked wrong. The map simply ended at the edge of human space. Honored Elder, Minho said carefully, I noticed the map appears incomplete. Our own surveys show star systems beyond our current borders, but they are not marked here. The chamber fell completely silent. 12 pairs of alien eyes stared at Minho. The air felt heavy with tension. Those regions, Vextar said slowly, are of no interest to galactic civilization. But surely there are worlds suitable for colonization, resources to be gathered. We have detected several promising systems just beyond our current reach. Elder Zephyros moved restlessly in his floating chair. Those systems are unsuitable. The conditions there are not favorable for most species. What kind of conditions? Minho pressed gently. Another long silence. Council members exchanged glances that seemed to carry hidden meaning. Finally, an elder from the insectoid collective spoke up. His voice buzzed like 1,000 angry bees. The outer rim regions are simply empty space, human. There is nothing there worth claiming. Minho looked at the map again. The edges of human territory bordered on vast blank areas marked only as unexplored or no strategic value. It made no sense. Why would spacefaring civilizations with 10,000 years of exploration leave such large areas untouched? Perhaps we could assist with exploration of these regions? Minho offered. Humanity has shown skill at establishing colonies in difficult environments. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Several council members made sharp sounds of alarm. Vexitar's crystalline form flashed with angry red light. Even the usually calm tree-like elders rustled their metal leaves with what sounded like distress. "That will not be necessary," Vexitar said firmly. "These regions have been thoroughly evaluated and found to be unsuitable for any civilized purpose. But our sensors show—" "Your sensors are mistaken," Zephyros interrupted. "The outer rim is a dead zone. Nothing of value exists there." Minho could tell he had touched on something important. The council's reaction was too strong, too coordinated. They were hiding something about the unmapped regions beyond human space. "Of course, honored elders, I did not mean to question your wisdom. Perhaps we could discuss humanity's qualifications for council membership?" The tension in the room eased slightly. The rest of the meeting proceeded normally. The council asked questions about human government, technology, and culture. Minho answered as best he could, but part of his mind kept returning to that strange blank space on the galactic map. After 2 hours, the formal session ended. Vextar announced that the council would consider humanity's application and provide an answer within 1 galactic standard year. It was better than Minho had hoped for. Most species waited centuries for even a preliminary response. As the council members filed out, Elder Zephyros approached Minho privately. The gas being's environmental suit hissed softly as he moved closer. "A word of advice, young human," Zephyros whispered. "Some regions of space are left unexplored for good reason. Your species would be wise to focus on the territories you already possess." Before Minho could respond, the elder had floated away, leaving him alone in the massive chamber with the holographic galaxy still spinning slowly in the air. That evening, in his quarters aboard the diplomatic transport, Minho sent an encrypted message to Earth Command. The message was brief but urgent. "Request immediate investigation of galactic mapping discrepancies. Council reaction suggests significant information being withheld regarding Outer Rim territories." 3 days later, Captain Yuna of the Exploration, Vessel New Sol, received classified orders from Earth Command. Her mission was simple in description, but potentially dangerous in execution. Find out why every galactic map ended exactly where human space began. Yuna stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars. Her crew was the best Earth had to offer. Navigation specialist Tai-hyun could plot courses through the most dangerous space. Weapons officer Hyun had never met a fight she could not handle. Cultural analyst Jiwon understood alien psychology better than most aliens understood themselves. "Captain," Taehyun called from his station, "I have been studying the official galactic maps compared to our own survey data. The discrepancies are significant. Show me," Yuna ordered. The main screen displayed 2 overlapping star charts. One showed the official Galactic Council map, ending abruptly at human borders. The other showed human survey data extending far beyond those borders, into regions marked as empty space. "According to our deep space probes," Taehyun explained, "there are at least 50 star systems within easy travel distance that show signs of previous habitation. Ancient structures, abandoned facilities, even some automated systems still functioning." Jiwon looked up from her cultural analysis station. "Captain, I have been researching historical records from our first contacts with council species. Several of them made strange comments about human expansion patterns. They seemed surprised by our choice of colony locations." "Surprised how?" "As if we had chosen to build cities in a graveyard." Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. Something was very wrong with the official story about the Outer Rim territories. The Council's reaction to simple questions about unmapped space had been too extreme, too fearful. "Set course for the edge of human space," she ordered. "We are going to find out what everyone is so afraid of." As the new soul prepared for departure, none of them realized they were about to discover the most important secret in galactic history. The truth about why the maps ended at human space would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe. The new soul drifted silently through space toward the coordinates Tai Hyun had found in the deep survey data. 3 weeks had passed since they left the main shipping lanes, and the stars looked different here. Older somehow, and strangely quiet. "Captain," Tai Hyun called from his navigation station, "I am picking up artificial structures ahead. The readings match the abandoned facility from our probe data." Yuna studied the main screen as their target came into view. It was clearly not human-built. The structure looked like a massive flower made of metal and crystal, with petals that stretched for kilometers. But it was dark, lifeless, with sections that appeared to have been damaged or hastily removed. "Any signs of life?" she asked. Haeun checked her weapon sensors. "Nothing moving, Captain. But I am detecting some kind of low-level energy signature from the central section. Something is still powered down there." "Jiwon, what do you think?" The cultural analyst studied the structure through the ship's telescopes. "The design matches known Zephyrian architecture from historical records. This looks like one of their deep space research stations. But according to council maps, the Zephyrians never built anything in this region." Yuna made her decision. "Prepare a boarding party. We are going to take a look." 2 hours later, Yuna, Jiwon, and Haeun floated through the empty corridors of the alien station. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered with strange symbols and control panels designed for beings who breathed gas instead of air. "This place has been empty for a long time," Haeun observed, checking her readings. "But not as long as you might expect. Maybe 200 or 300 years. They found the central command center, a vast spherical room filled with floating displays and control interfaces. When Jiwon connected her translation device to the station's computer system, the displays flickered to life. "The good news is that their computers are still working," Jiwon reported. "The bad news is that most of the data appears to have been erased in a hurry. Can you recover anything?" Jiwon worked steadily for an hour, her fingers dancing over the alien interfaces. Gradually, fragments of information began to appear on the displays. Star charts, research logs, and something that looked like evacuation orders. "Captain, you need to see this," Jiwon said quietly. The main display showed a map of local space from the Zephyrian perspective. It was much older than current galactic maps, but it showed the same region they were now exploring. The difference was shocking. What current maps marked as empty space was filled with Zephyrian colonies, research stations, and mining operations. According to this data, Jiwon explained, the Zephyrians had extensive territory throughout this entire region. Hundreds of worlds, millions of inhabitants. This was one of their major sectors. What happened to them? More fragments appeared as Jiwon continued working. Research logs talking about something called the Silence. Urgent communications about colonies going dark, military reports about entire fleets vanishing without sending distress calls. One log entry made Yuna's blood run cold. Day 847 of the emergency. The 7th Fleet has not reported in for 2 weeks. Long-range sensors show no debris, no energy signatures, nothing. It is as if they simply stopped existing. Command is ordering full evacuation of sectors 12 through 18. We cannot fight what we cannot understand. Keep looking, Yuna ordered. The picture that emerged was terrifying. The Zephyrians had not left this region by choice. Something had driven them out. Something that could make entire fleets disappear without leaving any trace. A personal log from the station commander appeared on the screen. Ji-Wan translated it slowly. This is Research Commander Vel Nath. We are preparing to abandon Station Deep Flower as ordered. The things we detected in the outer systems have begun moving inward. We do not know what they are or what they want, but every world they visit becomes silent. No communications, no life signs, nothing. The evacuation ships will arrive tomorrow. I pray we are not too late. The log was dated 847 local years ago. Ji-Wan, Yuna said slowly. Cross-reference this timeline with human colonization records. Ji-Wan worked quickly on her portable computer. After a few minutes, she looked up with a pale face. Captain, the first human colony ships reached this region approximately 800 years ago. We established our first settlements here within 50 years of the Zephyrian evacuation. So humans moved into territory that the Zephyrians fled from in terror. It gets worse. According to these records, the Zephyrians were not the only ones. I am finding references to crystalline hegemony mining operations, insectoid collective research bases, even some early tree elder settlements. They all pulled out around the same time. Heiyun had been exploring other parts of the station while they worked. Now she returned with a grim expression. Captain, I found the military command center. The weapon systems have been completely removed, but the targeting computers are still intact. They were tracking something. She led them to another chamber, filled with tactical displays. When Ji-Wan activated the systems, they showed a 3-dimensional map of local space with thousands of red dots moving slowly inward from the outer rim. What are those? Yuna asked. Unknown contacts, Ji-Wan read from the translated display. The Zephyrians called them Watchers, or the Silent Ones. According to their data, these contacts appeared suddenly about 900 years ago and began moving inward toward inhabited space. Moving how? Ships? Probes? The records are unclear. The Zephyrians could detect them but could not identify what they were detecting. Energy signatures unlike anything in their databases. Movement patterns that did not match known technology. And wherever they went, inhabited worlds went silent. Yuna studied the tactical display. The red dots were concentrated in the outer rim regions, exactly where human colonies now thrived. Show me current human colony locations. When Ji-Wan overlaid human settlement data on the Zephyrian tactical map, the result was impossible to ignore. Every single human colony in the region sat directly on top of a former Watcher position. That cannot be a coincidence, Heiyun muttered. No, Yuna agreed. It cannot. They spent another hour searching through the station's records. The more they found, the more disturbing the picture became. The evacuation had not been orderly. Entire Zephyrian colonies had been abandoned so quickly that personal belongings were left behind. Military forces had retreated without attempting to fight. It was as if entire civilizations had simply run away from something too terrible to face. But what could be so frightening that advanced spacefaring species would abandon entire sectors of territory? Captain, Tae-hyun's voice crackled through. They're communicators. You need to return to the ship immediately. I am detecting multiple energy signatures approaching our position. What kind of signatures? Unknown. They match some of the readings from the Zephyrian tactical computer, but that should be impossible. According to their records, these contacts vanished centuries ago. Yuna made the decision quickly. Everyone back to the ship. Now! As they hurried through the empty corridors of the abandoned station, Ji-won clutched her portable storage device filled with copied Zephyrian data. Whatever had driven the Council species away from this region might still be here. And humanity had been living alongside it for 800 years without knowing it existed. Back aboard the new Soul, Tae-hyun showed them the sensor readings. 3 contacts were approaching slowly from the direction of the nearest human colony. They moved, in a pattern that did not match any known ship design or propulsion system. Should we hail them? Hae-yoon asked, her hand hovering over the weapons controls. Wait, Yuna ordered. If these are the same contacts that terrified the Zephyrians into abandoning this entire region, I want to know what we are dealing with first. The upboarding contacts continued their approach for another hour, then stopped just outside normal communication range. They simply waited there, neither advancing nor retreating. Captain, Tae-hyun said quietly, they are maintaining position exactly where. The Zephyrian records show optimal surveillance distance for unknown contacts, as if they are watching us. Yes, but not in a threatening way. More like curious or maybe protective. The realization hit Yuna like a physical blow. Set course for New Busan Colony. Maximum speed. Captain, we need to talk to the colonists. If these watchers have been in human space for 800 years, our people must have encountered them before. As the new Soul jumped to faster-than-light speed, none of them noticed that the 3 unknown contacts followed at a respectful distance, maintaining their surveillance pattern exactly as the Zephyrian tactical computers had predicted they would. The truth was becoming clear, but it was a truth that would shake the foundations of everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity's place in the universe. The temporal scholars lived in a massive library built inside a hollow asteroid. Their species looked like tall, thin beings made of shifting silver light, and they spent their entire long lives recording and preserving galactic history. Most species considered them harmless but boring. Few realized that they kept secrets that could shatter civilizations. Hyun had volunteered for this dangerous mission because someone needed to get inside the scholars' restricted archives. The official records available to the public told a simple story. The galaxy was peaceful, the Council maintained order, and dangerous regions were simply empty space. But the Zephyrian data suggested something very different had happened. Getting inside was easier than expected. The scholars welcomed visitors who showed genuine interest in historical research. Archivist Veltham, who appeared as a constantly shifting column of silver mist, was happy to show Haeyeon to the public research areas. "What period of history interests you, young human?" Veltham asked. His voice sounded like whispers echoing in an empty cathedral. "The expansion patterns of the major council species," Haeyeon replied carefully. "I am researching why certain regions of space remained unexplored for so long, the silver being flickered with what might have been amusement." "Ah, you are asking the interesting questions. Most researchers want to know about wars and treaties. Few ask about the spaces between the maps." He led her to a reading chamber filled with holographic displays. "This is our collection of official expansion records. You will find the standard information about colonial development and territorial claims. Heian spent several hours reviewing the public records. They painted the same picture she had seen before. Gradual expansion by council species until they reached certain boundaries, then a complete stop. No explanation for why expansion halted, just a simple notation that further territories were unsuitable for development. But Veltham had given her a hint. He had emphasized the word official in a way that suggested there were unofficial records as well. That evening, Heian approached the archivist privately. I noticed gaps in the expansion timelines. Are there supplementary records that might explain the territorial boundaries? Veltham was silent for a long moment. His silver form stopped shifting and became very still. What you are asking about is dangerous knowledge, human. Are you certain you wish to know? My people need to understand our place in the galaxy. If there is relevant history, we should learn from it. Another long silence. Then Veltham began moving again, his form flickering with nervous energy. Follow me. But know that what you learn cannot be unlearned. Some truths change how you see the universe forever. He led her deep into the asteroid, through passages that seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal space should allow. Eventually, they reached a chamber that felt wrong in ways Heian could not explain. The walls were covered with symbols that hurt to look at directly. This is the restricted archive, Veltham explained. We keep records here that the Council wishes forgotten, information about events that officially never happened. The chamber contained thousands of data crystals, each one glowing with a faint light that seemed to pull at Heian's eyes. Veltham selected one crystal and placed it in a reader designed for beings with more than 2 eyes. The Great Silence War, he said simply. 1,200 years ago, the galaxy faced its greatest threat. We do not speak of it because the survivors made a pact to forget. But forgetting and recording are different things. We temporal scholars remember everything. The crystal activated, and the chamber filled with holographic images that made Heian's mind reel. Vast fleets of ships burning. In space, entire star systems going dark, beings of pure malevolence that seem to exist outside normal reality. They came from the outer rim, Veltham narrated as the horrible images played around them. We called them the Devourers because they consumed everything they touched. Not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence. Worlds they visited did not just die. They ceased to have ever been. The images showed desperate battles fought by species Heian recognized from the current Galactic Council. Crystalline ships shattering against enemies made of living darkness. Zephyrian gas fleets being dissolved by things that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Tree Elder world ships withering as their connection to life itself was severed. How? Do you fight something like that? Heian whispered. You do not, Veltham replied. The council species of that time tried everything. Weapons that bent space and time. Armies of warrior machines that felt no fear. Alliances with entities from parallel dimensions. Nothing worked. The Devourers kept coming, kept consuming, kept erasing everything they touched from existence. The holographic display showed a map of the galaxy as it existed 1,200 years ago. Massive territories belonging to dozens of species. Then the map began changing, showing the steady advance of empty darkness as the Devourers moved inward from the outer rim. We estimate that 2/3 of galactic civilization was destroyed in the first century of the war. Entire species ceased to exist, their worlds, their history, Even the memory of them was consumed. We only know about them because we scholars maintain records in dimensions the Devourers could not reach. Heian watched in horror as the darkness consumed system after system, leaving behind void that was not just empty, but actively hostile to existence itself. What stopped them? The silver being's form flickered with what might have been confusion. That is the mystery that has puzzled us for 1,000 years. They simply stopped. After 8 centuries of unstoppable advance, the Devourers retreated to the outer rim and vanished. We do not know why. Retreated where? Veltham manipulated the display, showing the final positions of the Devourer forces before they disappeared. Heian felt her blood turn to ice water. The retreat positions exactly matched the regions where humans had later established their most successful colonies. The surviving council species agreed never to venture into the outer rim again, Veltham continued. They drew new maps that ended at the inner edge of the former war zone. They convinced themselves that the threat was gone, but deep in their genetic memory, they knew it was merely waiting. And then humans arrived. Yes, your species established colonies in the exact territories where the Devourers had been strongest. The Council was terrified, but did not know how to warn you without revealing the truth about the war. So they watched and waited for humanity to be consumed like all the others. But we were not consumed. No. For 800 years, humans have thrived in regions that destroyed civilizations far older and more powerful than yours. The Council does not understand how this is possible. Heian studied the historical data with growing amazement. Human expansion had not just survived. In Devourer territory, it had thrived there. Some of humanity's most successful colonies were built on worlds that had been the strongest Devourer bases. Do you have any theories about why humans survived where others failed? Veltham's form began shifting rapidly, a sign of deep thought among his species. There are several possibilities. Perhaps the Devourers truly are gone, and humans simply have good luck in choosing colony sites. Perhaps they are still there, but in some kind of dormant state. Or perhaps what? Perhaps humans possess some quality that makes them immune to whatever force the Devourers represent. Some species develop resistance to specific threats through evolutionary pressure. If your species encountered similar challenges in your early development, you might have natural defenses that others lack. The implications were staggering. If humans were naturally resistant to the force that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization, it would explain many mysteries: why human colonies succeeded in unsuitable territories, why other species felt uneasy about human expansion patterns, why the Galactic Council maps ended exactly where human space began. Can I copy this data? Heian asked. Some of it. But be warned that knowledge of the Great Silence War must be handled carefully. If word spreads that the outer rim is not truly safe, it could cause panic throughout the galaxy. Entire species might abandon their territories and flee toward the galactic core. Heian spent the next 6 hours copying everything she could. Historical records of the war, battle reports from the final retreat, most importantly, detailed maps showing where the Devourers had been strongest and where they had vanished. When she finally left the restricted archive, her mind was spinning with questions. Had humanity really survived in Devourer territory for 8 centuries without knowing it? Were the entities that had terrorized the galaxy still there, held in check by some quality unique to humans? The return journey to the new soul gave her time to think. If her suspicions were correct, humanity was not just another expanding species. They were living shields, standing guard at the edge of the known universe against threats that could destroy everything. But first, she needed proof. The historical records were convincing, but she needed to know what was actually happening in human space right now. Were the Devourers really gone? Were they dormant? Or were humans somehow keeping them contained without even knowing it? When she finally reached the ship and shared her findings with Captain Yuna, the reaction was immediate. "Set course for the outer colonies," Yuna ordered. If humanity has been, New Busan Colony looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. A thriving human settlement on the edge of known space. Clean streets, bustling markets, children playing in parks under the light of an alien sun. Colony Administrator Sunho greeted them at the spaceport with a warm smile and genuine pride in his community. "Captain Yuna, welcome to New Busan," he said, shaking hands in the traditional human way. "We do not get many military visits out here. Is this some kind of inspection?" "Not exactly," Yuna replied carefully. "We are conducting a survey of outer rim colonies for Earth Command. Standard procedure for settlements in frontier regions." Sunho's smile did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Frontier regions? Well, I suppose we are pretty far from Earth. Come on, let me show you around." The tour was impressive. New Busan had 60,000 residents and was completely self-sufficient. They had terraformed a previously dead world into something that looked like it could have been Earth's sister. Advanced technology blended seamlessly with comfortable living spaces. But Jiwon noticed things that did not quite fit the picture of a normal colony. The security checkpoints were too numerous and too well armed for a peaceful settlement. The walls around the residential areas were built to military specifications. Most telling of all, every building had what looked like emergency shelters built into their foundations. "Administrator Sunho," Jiwon said during lunch, "I notice your security measures are quite extensive for a colony this far from any known threats." Sunho chuckled. "You city folks always think we are being paranoid. But out here on the rim, you learn to be prepared for anything. We get some unusual weather patterns, and the local wildlife can be a bit troublesome." "What kind of wildlife?" "Oh, you know how it is with frontier worlds. Evolution takes some strange turns when you are dealing with high-energy environments and unusual magnetic fields. We get night hunters that phase in and out of normal space. Shadow storms that can mess with your electronics if you are not careful. Nothing we cannot handle, but it keeps our security teams busy." Haeyeon nearly choked on her coffee. "Did you say phase in and out of normal space?" "Sure. Probably something to do with the quantum fluctuations near the galactic rim. Our scientists have some theories, but mostly we just focus on practical solutions. Motion detectors that work in multiple dimensions, barriers that block trans-dimensional movement, that sort of thing." The three visitors exchanged glances. Sunho was describing encounters with entities that matched the historical records of devourer activities, but he talked about them like they were mosquitoes. That afternoon, they met with Security Chief Mireille. She was a tough-looking woman with scars on her hands and eyes that had seen too much. When Yuna asked about security protocols, Mireille was more direct than the administrator had been. "We run patrols to the dark zones 3 times a week," she explained, pointing to areas on a local map that were marked with warning symbols. "Standard. Procedure is to keep them quiet and contained. Most of the nasties stay in their designated areas if you do not bother them, but sometimes they get restless." "Nasties?" Jiwon asked. "You know, the usual stuff. Energy parasites that feed on consciousness. Dimensional predators that hunt in pack formations. Occasionally we get something bigger that requires heavy weapons, but that only happens maybe once or twice a year. Hayun stared at the security chief. And this is normal? Mireille looked confused. Normal for rim colonies, sure. I mean, you do not get the good real estate without dealing with some inconveniences. Earth Command briefed you on local conditions before sending you out here, right? Of course, Yuna lied. We just wanted to get a local perspective. Well, the local perspective is that most of the dangerous stuff keeps to itself if you know how to handle it. We have containment protocols that have worked for generations. The big rule is never go into the deep dark alone. Always carry dimensional anchors when you patrol the boundary zones, and if you see anything that looks like it might be trying to communicate, call for backup immediately. That evening, they visited Dr. Kyungjae at the colony's research station. He was a cheerful man in his 50s who had been studying local phenomena for 20 years. His laboratory was filled with specimens that made Hayun, a trained military officer, feel nauseated just looking at them. Beautiful, are not they? Dr. Kyungjae said, gesturing at a collection of creatures that seemed to exist in several dimensions, simultaneously. This is a shadow crawler. They hunt by moving through parallel reality layers, and this one is a thought feeder. Completely harmless as long as you do not let it get too close to your brain. Where do these come from? Jiwon asked weakly. The outer territories mostly. We think they are remnants from some kind of ancient ecosystem that adapted to high-energy environments. Most of them are actually quite fascinating once you understand their biology. Well, the ones that have biology in any sense we can understand. He led them to another display case containing what looked like a piece of living darkness that occasionally sprouted tentacles made of distorted space-time. Now, this fellow is really interesting. We call them reality eaters. They feed on the quantum foam that underlies normal space. In large numbers, they can actually unmake small areas of existence. But this little guy is perfectly safe in containment. Yuna felt like the universe had turned upside down. Dr. Kyungjae, are you telling me that you keep cosmic horrors as research? Specimens? Cosmic horrors? He looked genuinely puzzled. I would not call them that. They are just local fauna adapted to unusual conditions. Some of them are quite intelligent, actually. We have established basic communication with a few species. Communication? Oh, yes. The dimensional shepherds are particularly sophisticated. They seem to have some kind of social structure based on maintaining barriers between reality layers. We think they might actually be trying to help us by keeping the more dangerous entities contained in the deep dark. The pieces were starting to come together in Yuna's mind, but the picture they formed was almost impossible to believe. Humans had not just survived in devourer territory, they had turned cosmic horrors into a wildlife management problem. Doctor, how long have humans been dealing with these entities? Since the first colonies were established about 800 years ago, the early settlers had some rough times learning how to coexist with the local conditions, but they figured out effective methods pretty quickly. Most of our current protocols are based on techniques developed by the original colonists. That night, in their guest quarters, the three officers tried to make sense of what they had learned. They are treating the entities that destroyed galactic civilization like they are bears in a national park, Hayun said in amazement. It is more than that, Jiwon replied. They have turned them into a managed ecosystem. The dangerous ones are contained in designated areas. The less dangerous ones are studied and sometimes even cooperated with. It is like they have domesticated cosmic horror. Yuna looked out the window at the peaceful colony streets. Families were out for evening walks. Children played in the parks. It looked completely normal except for the occasional patrol vehicle armed with what appeared to be reality stabilization equipment. The question is whether they know what they are doing or if this is all just incredible luck and human stubbornness. The answer came the next morning when they met with colony supervisor Jae-hyun, an elderly man who had been born on New Busan and lived his entire life on the frontier. My grandfather was part of the original survey team that established this colony, he told them over breakfast. He used to tell stories about the early days when they were still figuring out how to deal with the local conditions. What kind of stories? Oh, the usual pioneer tales. How they learned that certain areas were off-limits during specific times of day. How they figured out that the shadow creatures were actually trying to establish territorial boundaries, not hunt humans. How they discovered that most of the dangerous entities would leave you alone if you respected their space and did not interfere with their activities. Jae-hyun paused to sip his coffee. The funny thing is, my grandfather always said the locals seemed almost grateful when humans showed up, as if they had been waiting for someone who could communicate with them properly. Communicate how? Well, most species try to fight or flee when they encounter something they do not understand. But humans just tried to figure out how to coexist. My grandfather said it was like learning to live with dangerous neighbors. You establish boundaries, you follow the rules, and everyone gets along fine. As they prepared to leave New Busan, Yuna realized that humanity had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not conquered the devourers or destroyed them. They had simply learned to live with them. But there were still too many questions without answers. How had early human colonists figured out coexistence methods that had escaped species with millions of years more experience? Why did the entities cooperate with humans when they had consumed everyone else? Most importantly, did Earth Command know what humanity had accomplished in the Outer Rim? Or were they about to discover that their own species had been serving as the galaxy's unwitting guardians for 8 centuries? The answers to those questions lay in the deep dark, where the most dangerous entities were CE. The meridian line was not marked on any official map, but every human in the outer colonies knew exactly where it was. It was the invisible boundary where normal space ended and the deep dark began. Captain Yuna had ordered the new Soul to cross that line despite knowing that no non-human ship had done so in over 800 years. "Captain," Tae-hyun called from his navigation station, his voice tense. "We are approaching the line. All systems are green, but I am getting some very strange readings from the sensors." "What kind of readings?" "Space itself seems to be thicker here. Like we are moving through honey instead of vacuum. And there are structures out there that should not be possible according to known physics." On the main screen, impossible sights came into view. Massive space stations that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Industrial platforms harvesting energy from tiers in space-time itself. Ships moving along routes that bent through folded reality. But most shocking of all was that everything was clearly marked with human identification codes. "Captain," Haeun said in amazement, "those are our people out there." A communication signal reached them from what appeared to be a space station built inside a stabilized black hole. The voice was calm and professional, with a slight accent that suggested the speaker had been born in the outer colonies. "Unknown vessel, this is Sentinel Station Traffic Control. Please identify yourself and state your business in the deep dark." Yuna activated the communication system. "Sentinel Station, this is Captain Yuna of the Earth Fleet vessel New Soul. We are conducting a survey mission for Earth Command." A long pause. Then, "New Soul, be advised that you are entering a restricted zone. Please maintain your current heading and prepare to be escorted to Admiral Wu Jin's command station. Do not deviate from the escort route under any circumstances." Within minutes, 3 ships appeared alongside the new Soul. They looked like human vessels, but they had been modified with technology that seemed to bend the rules of physics. Their hulls shifted between different states of matter, and their engines left trails of controlled reality distortion in space. The escort led them through a maze of structures that became more impressive and more impossible with every kilometer. Automated defense platforms that fired beams of crystallized time, mining stations extracting raw existence from the quantum foam, research facilities studying entities that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. "This is incredible," Jiwan whispered. "How long has this been here?" "According to the construction dates I am picking up from the identification beacons," Tae-hyun replied, "some of these facilities have been operating for over 200 years. This is not some recent development. This is an entire civilization that we never knew existed." They docked at the command station, which appeared to be built around a controlled tear in space-time that provided unlimited energy. Admiral Wu Jin met them at the airlock. He was a man in his 60s with silver hair and eyes that had seen things most humans could not imagine. "Captain Yuna," he said, extending his hand in greeting. "Welcome to Sentinel Station. I understand. You have some questions about our operations out here. Admiral, I have to ask. Does Earth Command know about any of this?" Wu Jin smiled. "Earth Command knows that we keep the outer rim secure. They do not need to know the specific details of how we do it. Most people sleep better not knowing what lives in the dark places." He led them through the station, which was a marvel of technology that seemed to operate on principles Earth's best scientists had not discovered yet. The walls were lined with displays showing monitoring data from thousands of locations throughout the deep dark. "Admiral," Hae-yoon asked, "what exactly are you monitoring?" "The sleepers, mostly. Ancient entities that were causing problems for the galaxy before humans arrived. We keep them contained and make sure they do not wake up. Occasionally, we get new ones drifting in from the void beyond the galaxy, so we have to expand our containment operations. They passed a control room where human technicians worked alongside beings that appeared to be made of living shadow." Yuna stopped in shock. "Are those reformed devourers?" Wu Jin explained casually. "Turns out they are not inherently hostile. They were just confused and angry because no one had bothered to try communicating with them before. Once we figured out how to talk to them properly, most of them were happy to help with containment operations." "You domesticated cosmic horrors?" "We prefer the term negotiated mutual cooperation agreements. But yes, essentially. It turns out that most of the entities previous civilizations considered to be unstoppable threats were just misunderstood. They have their own goals and motivations. Once you figure out what they want and find ways to work together, they are actually quite reasonable." The tour continued through facilities that redefined what Yuna thought was possible. Laboratories, where human scientists worked with beings from parallel dimensions to develop new technologies. Industrial complexes that manufactured materials that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Military training centers where human soldiers learned to fight using weapons that operated on principles beyond normal physics. "How did this all begin?" Jiwan asked. Wu Jin led them to a memorial wall covered with pictures of the original Deep Dark pioneers. "It started with the first survey teams that established colonies in this region 800 years ago. They encountered the entities that had been terrorizing the galaxy and did what humans always do when faced with something they do not understand. Which is? They tried to figure out how to make it work. Instead of running away or trying to destroy everything they encountered, they studied it, experimented with it, and gradually learned how to coexist with it. The early pioneers were remarkably brave people. One of the memorial pictures showed a woman in an early model spacesuit standing next to what appeared to be a being made of crystallized darkness. Both were giving thumbs-up signs to the camera. "That is Survey Team Leader Park Sun-mi," Wu Jin explained. "She was the first human to successfully communicate with a greater devourer. Turns out they were not actually trying to consume existence. They were trying to repair damage to the fundamental structure of reality that had been caused by an even older threat." An older threat? The real enemy disappeared into the void between galaxies millions of years ago. The Devourers were just cleaning up the mess it left behind. When they realized that humans could understand their purpose and help with the work, they were delighted to have competent partners. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not just survived contact with cosmic horrors. They had turned them into allies and partners in maintaining the stability of local reality itself. "Admiral," Yuna said slowly, "does this mean that humanity has been serving as the galaxy's guardian force for 8 centuries without anyone knowing?" "Not just guardians," Wu Jin replied. "Janitors, negotiators, containment specialists, and occasionally therapists for entities with psychological problems that span multiple dimensions. It is honest work, and someone has to do it." He led them to an observation deck that looked out into the deepest part of the dark. In the distance, they could see structures that hurt to look at directly, and beings that moved through space in ways that violated several laws of physics. "The galaxy is much larger and more dangerous than the Council species realize," Wu Jin explained. "There are threats out here that could unmake entire civilizations if they were not properly contained. Ancient weapons left over from wars between entities that existed before matter condensed into atoms. Reality-eating viruses that spread through dimensional barriers. Predatory concepts that hunt by infecting the thoughts of sentient beings. And humans deal with all of this? Humans and our partners, yes. It is not easy work, but it is necessary work. The inner galaxy gets to sleep peacefully, because we keep the nightmares contained out here." As they prepared to return to the New Soul, Admiral Wu Jin gave them a final piece of information that changed everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the universe. "Captain, when you report back to Earth Command, please emphasize that our operations out here are entirely voluntary. We are not doing this because we have to. We are doing it because we want to. Because someone needs to stand guard at the edge of the known universe, and we have discovered that we are surprisingly good at it." "What should I tell them about the Galactic Council? They still believe this region is empty space." Wu Jin smiled. "Let them keep believing that for now. The Council species are not ready to know that the threats they ran away from centuries ago are still here, just under new management. When they are mature enough to handle the truth, we will invite them to visit. Until then, we will continue doing what we have always done, keeping the dark places safe so everyone else can sleep peacefully." As the New Soul began its journey back to the inner galaxy, Yuna realized that everything they had discovered would have to be handled very carefully. Humanity had not just found their place in the galactic community, they had created an entirely new role for themselves as the guardians of reality itself. The question now was whether Earth Command was ready to learn that their species had become something unprecedented in galactic history. The people who made friends with monsters and turned cosmic horror into a public service. The return to Alpha Centauri Trade Station felt like traveling between 2 different universes. Behind them lay the deep dark, where humans worked alongside cosmic entities to maintain the fabric of reality itself. Ahead lay the civilized galaxy, where 12 ancient species lived in careful ignorance of the threats their ancestors had fled from centuries ago. Ambassador Minho waited for them in a private meeting room, his face tense with anticipation. The data they had gathered would either revolutionize humanity's relationship with the Galactic Council or cause a panic that could destabilize the entire galaxy. "Captain Yuna," Minho said as they entered, "your preliminary reports have been interesting. Earth Command has asked me to handle the diplomatic implications of whatever you have discovered." Yuna activated a secure holographic display and began showing the evidence they had collected. Images of abandoned alien facilities, historical records from the temporal scholars, video footage of human colonies coexisting with entities that had once terrorized galactic civilization. "The situation is more complex than anyone realized," she began. "Humanity has not just been expanding into empty territory. We have been unknowingly serving as the galaxy's guardians against threats that could destroy entire civilizations." Minho studied the data in growing amazement. "These entities that the historical records call devourers, they still exist?" "They exist. But they are not what the Council species believe them to be. Most of them are actually trying to repair damage to reality caused by even older threats. When humans arrived and learned to communicate with them instead of fighting them, they became allies rather than enemies." The holographic display showed footage from Sentinel Station. Human technicians working alongside beings of living shadow, reformed devourers helping to contain dangerous dimensional rifts, and cosmic entities that had been turned into partners in maintaining the stability of local space. "This changes everything," Minho said quietly. "If the Council learns that humanity has been living alongside their greatest nightmare for 8 centuries, some of them might panic," Yuna agreed. "But others might be relieved to know that the threat is contained. The question is how we present this information." Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from Elder Zephyros of the Gas Giant Collective. The alien's image appeared in the hologram, his environmental suit filled with swirling purple gas that moved in agitated patterns. "Ambassador Minho," Zephyros said, "I must speak with you immediately about a matter of utmost importance to the Council." "Of course, Elder. How may I assist you?" "We have been monitoring unusual energy signatures from the outer rim regions near human space. Our long-range sensors have detected activities that concern us greatly." Yuna and Minho exchanged glances. The Council had detected their investigations. "What kind of activities, Elder?" "Massive energy manipulations, reality distortions, controlled dimensional rifts. Either something terrible has awakened in the forbidden zones or—" Zephyros paused, his gas swirling nervously. "Or humans have developed capabilities far beyond what we believed possible. Minho made a decision that would change galactic history. Elder Zephyros, I believe it is time for humanity to share some important information with the Council. Would it be possible to convene an emergency session?" "An emergency session?" "Ambassador, what exactly are you saying?" "I am saying that the Outer Rim territories are not empty, and humanity has not been expanding into uninhabited space. We have been doing something much more important, and it is time for the galaxy to know the truth." 2 hours later, the full Galactic Council assembled in emergency session. All 12 elder species were present, their representatives showing varying degrees of curiosity and concern. The chamber's holographic displays showed the familiar galactic map with its sharp boundary at the edge of human space. Minho stood in the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. What he was about to reveal would either elevate humanity to a position of unprecedented respect or cause a panic that could fragment galactic civilization. "Honored elders," he began, "humanity appreciates the Council's consideration of our membership application. However, before that decision is made, we must share information that affects the security and well-being of all galactic civilization." Elder Vextar's crystalline form flickered with cautious light. What information could humanity possess that would be relevant to the entire Council? "Information about why your maps end at human space and what has been happening in the territories. You abandoned centuries ago." The chamber fell completely silent. Several council members made sounds of distress, while others leaned forward with intense interest. Minho activated the holographic display system and began showing the evidence. First came the historical records from the temporal scholars, showing the Great Silence War and the retreat of council species from the Outer Rim. Several elders made sounds of recognition and old pain. "We know about the war," Elder Zephyros said heavily. "We know about the retreat. But those territories were abandoned for good reason. The threats there cannot be negotiated with or contained." "That was true 800 years ago," Minho replied. "It is no longer true today." The display changed to show current footage from human colonies in the deep dark. Human technicians working with reformed devourers. Cosmic entities helping to maintain containment facilities. Beings of living darkness serving as partners in reality maintenance operations. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Some council members cried out in terror. Others sat in stunned silence. Elder Vextar's form blazed with light as his species equivalent of extreme shock. "Impossible!" whispered the representative of the Tree Elder Confederation. "The Devourers cannot be reasoned with. They are force of pure destruction." "They were forces of destruction," Minho corrected gently. "But they were never inherently evil. They were trying to repair damage caused by even older threats. When humans learned to communicate with them properly, most of them were eager to cooperate." The display showed Admiral Wu Jin's facilities in the deep dark, massive structures dedicated to containing genuine threats while providing comfortable environments for entities that had been misunderstood for millennia. "For 8 centuries, Minho continued, humanity has been unknowingly serving as the galaxy's guardians. We have contained the threats that drove your ancestors away, negotiated peace with entities you considered unstoppable, and maintained the barriers that keep the really dangerous things from reaching civilized space." Elder Zephyros floated forward in his environmental suit. "You are saying that humans have been living alongside the Devourers, fighting them?" "Not fighting them, working with them. Most of what you call Devourers are actually cosmic janitors trying to clean up damage left by threats that have long since moved on to other galaxies. They were happy to find partners who could understand their work." The chamber erupted in discussion as council members tried to process this information. Some were terrified that humanity had awakened ancient threats. Others were amazed that the threats had been contained. A few seemed relieved that someone else had been handling the problem. Elder Vextar called for order. "Ambassador Minho, what does humanity want from the Council in light of this revelation?" Minho had anticipated this question. "Nothing, honored Elder. We are not asking for payment or special treatment. We are simply informing you that the Outer Rim territories are secure, and will remain so as long as humanity continues its work there. You want nothing? We want the galaxy to be safe and peaceful. We have discovered that we are unusually good at maintaining security in dangerous regions, so we will continue to do so. The only thing we ask is that the Council continue to respect our territorial boundaries and allow us to handle Outer Rim security without interference. The discussion continued for hours. Some Council members argued that humanity should be rewarded for their service. Others worried that human capabilities were too dangerous to ignore. A few suggested that humanity should be given formal authority over Outer Rim security. Finally, Elder Vextar called for a formal vote on humanity's Council membership application. The result was unanimous approval, but not for the reasons anyone had expected. The Galactic Council hereby accepts humanity as a full member species, Vextar announced. Not as junior partners seeking protection, but as the acknowledged guardians of galactic security. The Outer Rim territories will remain under human administration, and all Council species will respect humanity's role in maintaining the barriers between civilized space and the unknown. After the session ended, Elder Zephyros approached Minho privately. Ambassador, I must ask, do your people understand what they have accomplished? Most of them think they are just doing their jobs, Minho replied honestly. Humanity has a tendency to treat extraordinary challenges as routine problems to be solved. We did not set out to become the galaxy's guardians. We just moved into territory that seemed suitable for colonization and learned to coexist with the neighbors. Neighbors, Zephyros repeated in amazement. You call cosmic entities neighbors. What else would you call beings you live next to and work with regularly? The gas being was silent for a long moment. Most species would call them nightmares, but perhaps that is why most species ran away and hum.